this story is more interesting than I first thought. The key thing about it is, okay, you've got a fair in which every state is supposed to be represented, and it's happening on the National Mall, and it's obviously happening. It's going to include Independence Day, and Americans should be able to go there, and they should be able to look at the display that each state has decided to put on about what they're proud about, the nature of their state. And there are 10 states that have opted out. 10 states, 9 of which are led by Democrats. We are, of course, in one of them. Washington State has decided not to send a delegation or to outfit the booth, even though the expense of putting on the fair, the booth was already built for the state of Washington. All Washington had to do was decide to send people to staff it and some displays to show off the state. And Washington, like Connecticut, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, North Carolina, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Pennsylvania, has opted out. The only one of those that is not a Democrat-led state is Vermont, and obviously that.
Oh, who is it? An independent leading Vermont?
I'm not sure exactly what's going on in Vermont. I think it's a Republican, but obviously Vermont has some very powerfully left-leaning, and maybe I've got it wrong. But anyway,
doesn't seem right.
Research this morning suggested that was the case. But anyway, you've got Washington State, where we live, opting out of this thing. They've done so on the basis that we don't have the money. Now, on the one hand, the state is cash strapped for reasons that nobody can figure out, because they collect so much money in so many different forms and have just opened up an entirely new form, and it's spooking the hell out of anybody who is in a position to be taxed in the state.
Well, let's be precise. The newest taxes, which has gotten so much press with regard to Washington State, the so-called millionaire's tax, has not begun to be collected yet.
Yes.
The capital gains taxes, which are new, have begun to be collected. The estate taxes, which have recently gone up, have begun to be collected. There is a tremendous amount of taxation in Washington State. There's a tremendous amount of loss and misallocation of resources. Looks like corruption from where we're sitting, but put that aside, tremendous amount of resource, not yet including the so-called millionaire's tax, the new income tax in Washington State, with services that are, as we have covered before, among the lowest and declining fast among all 50 states.
Yes, and I will just say, you and I have recently been traveling, and the contrast between how well the state of Washington runs and how well a red state seems to run is shocking. Mm-hmm. It is shocking how well things are functioning elsewhere with much lower taxes. So that tells you something about either how well the money is being spent or whether it's actually being spent on the things we're told it's being spent on in the first place.
Let me just say, I know you're going somewhere here, but we're gonna elide for the moment exactly what red state we're talking about. But we were just for this last week in a state that pretty much across the board votes Republican. And yes, the services were clearly better. The tax base is lower. It's a well-populated state, but the taxes on the citizens of the state are far lower than they are here in Washington. And not only are the services better and the employees apparently doing their jobs with more equanimity and skill, everyone seems to be approaching their lives. And this is, of course, not going to be true across the board. There will be exceptions in Washington in the other direction, and exception in all the blue states in the other directions, and exceptions in the red states in the other directions as well. But upon returning to Washington, it was immediately apparent how much sadder and madder the population is. And at the moment, like, it happens to be a cloudy day right now, but we are in summer now. The Pacific Northwest is one of the absolutely most glorious places you could possibly be in the summer. Like, really, there is no place I would rather be in the summer. We have the most extraordinary summers and the most amazing natural resources and so many ways to get outside and glory in nature in almost whatever way you could possibly want. And yet what you see here are people who are embittered, who are depressed, who are mad at the world, who are glowering, who are just, people in service jobs who clearly hate service and probably hate all of humanity. And I don't think I saw a single human being like that in the red states. We've traveled in actually a number of red states recently in the last few months, and not, there is failure, there is depravity, there are many ways that things don't work everywhere. But boy, is there a stark difference in just what seems to be the attitude of the individuals in the populations, where if you walk around going like, yeah, I think today I'm going to try to be happy, people seem to be happy, and they're walking around with an attitude that makes other people smile at them too. And here in Washington, where we have at the moment the best, it's just the best place you could want to be in the United States, just on weather alone. No. Instead, we have sad, mad, mean people doing jobs where that should not be. None of those descriptors should be used for them.
Yes, and we are refusing to make the case for the state of Washington. People are fleeing the state of Washington, and Washington state is not sending a delegation or an exhibit to this fair on the National Mall on the 250th anniversary of the country.
And people know how amazing our landscape is. Like everywhere else we've been in the East and the South and the Northeast, like, oh my goodness, well, I've always wanted to go. The mountains, the oceans, the rivers, like, yes, the islands, it's gorgeous. But the people are mad and sad and mean.
Yeah.
And there's no excuse.
And
in January, I get it. It's hard to be here in January. But in frickin' July, come on.
They're sad and mean, and they're being petty.
Yes.
This is my point. So we are not sending a delegation to staff this fair on the National Mall on the 250th anniversary of the founding of the country on the basis that we don't have the money to do it.
And how much will this cost? Would this cost?
Well,
how do we decide to do it, which we have not?
The range, so they've already built the pavilion, mm-hmm. So Washington has a spot that we could just populate. Mm-hmm. It would cost somewhere between $100,000 to $500,000. Now let's assume that the state wanted to make a truly spectacular display that really showed off what's here, and they decided to put $1 million into it. Well, there are 8 million people in the state. We collect $11,000 in taxes on average per person. You could, if you decided to spend $1 million on an exhibit, do it for 12 cents a person, 12 cents a resident. And we're not doing it because we can't find the money, even though the state has an annual budget of $88 billion. So this is a nonsense explanation. 12 cents a person, we could find the money easily, right? So what we're really doing is making...
We can't seem to find any of the money that we're collecting, though.
I get it. On the other hand, 12 cents a person is 12 cents a person, right? You could probably do it, again, that's with my assumption of spending $1 million, which is 10 times the amount of the minimum that you would need to spend to just put up a basic display and staff the thing. So I'm, making a very generous assumption about how expensive this is, and it's still nothing. So we could find the money. You could probably get people to staff the booth as volunteers, right? It wouldn't take much to do this at all.
Well, and it's not like Washington couldn't use a PR boost.
Right. People are fleeing, and the tax base is going to dry up because people are fleeing. So my point is, okay, of course, the coastal blue states are going to take this opportunity to play politics. Which opportunity are they taking? Oh, the 250th anniversary of the founding of the nation, because they're not patriotic. These people really aren't patriotic, and they need to get over that. They need to come to understand that whatever they're pissed off about, something great was accomplished here, and fixing it is the obvious thing to do. But instead...
Well, I mean, of course, the explanation, once you get beyond the cover story, will not sound like, I don't believe in the country. It will sound like, that man is bad, and I don't want to have anything to do with him. It's just the continuation of the Trump derangement syndrome that, frankly, the red hat people, like the MAGA people, are not helping, because they appear to be just as immovable and static in their position on the other side. But the idea that you would poke your own eyes out rather than participate in a celebration of the 250th birthday of your country, that's reprehensible. It's reprehensible.
It's utterly reprehensible. Now, I will say I was surprised to discover that the organization that is putting on this event is Freedom 250, which is a Trump-aligned organization, and that Trump, in fact, participated in, I think I have the story straight, there is an annual celebration in June put on by the Smithsonian, and Trump seems to have shifted that celebration to one funded by Freedom 250. Now, at some level, I get that that was probably a deliberate provocation. Maybe it wasn't. But regardless, there are 50 states. They are part of this marvelous country. It is the 250th anniversary. The fact that you don't like the state of things right now is no argument not to be participating in this thing on the National Mall. And the real driver is a failure of patriotism on the Democratic left, and it's frankly despicable and foolish.